Hi, and we are wrapping up four more sessions of this, and we are good to go. So, have you ever wondered what's holding some people back once they make it to management? And you see a lady, and you're like, what is going on? What happened? What is holding her back? What went down? These things. So this week we talk about gender and communications. And so understanding the difference in communication style between men and women and how these differences may result in some biases that are found against women. And then understanding how men and women leadership styles vary. And we've been talking about that for the most part of this quarter, and then appreciating the importance of nonverbal communications. Finally, understanding how men and women use electronic communication. Yes, there is a difference. So all of that are items we're covering this week. And so a lot of times, guys, once we become managers, we find that women typically or anyone, we have the competencies levels to in order to or technical skills in order to achieve that. But what distinguishes us from the average performers um, is our interpersonal skills or people skills. Same thing. I had this story this week where an individual shared with me some of the challenges that they were having at work and what they saw the manager do. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that manager needs some training because that manager, everything that they were sharing with me revolved around that manager's inability to effectively communicate well, also in navigating organizational politics. I don't know if any of you have ever been there, but I've been there. I Politics is a challenge. Has in the past has really been a challenge for me if I chose to take them on. If I put too much emotions into it instead of just dealing with the facts at hand, you can't put emotions in there, and that's when politics becomes dealing politically becomes a challenge. You got to look at things for face value. So, in the text this week, it talks about once a woman becomes a manager and begins to move up the corporate ladder, that her interpersonal skills begin to be more closely observed. She can adapt her style or conduct in different ways or with different the way she conducts and adapts herself to different types of people. She has to manage conflict without alienating people. And many seemingly gender neutral descriptions of what it takes to reach the highest levels of management, often little, if any, thought is given to whether or not men and women communicate differently, and we do. Whether having different motivations, that influence our communication style, as well as the corporate environment, what it favors a man's style of communication versus it may favor more of a woman's style of communicating. Depends on where the organization is. And we've talked about that in earlier sessions where we talked about the different communication styles. So this week we talk about the controversy around the ideas, these many of these ideas, and look at men's style versus women's style. And so uh, there have been differences identified between male and female communication. Generally, they have attributed these differences to either socialization or simply a reflection of the power differentiation between men and women. So, those who subscribe to the former theory believe that men differences begin in childhood through the socialization process, where boys grow up being encouraged to compete with one another, whereas girls are expected to be accommodating and non-assertive. I was in the grocery store today and I kept saying, "Oh, I'm sorry." And the guy said to me, "Ma'am, what are you sorry for? You don't have to be sorry. I'm in the way, not you." And I was like, you know what? I'm just so on point to say I'm sorry, apologize, and move forward. I really don't think much about it, to be honest with you. I just try, it's not that I'm trying to be in favor with somebody. It's just I just want to move forward. And I said, I'm sorry if I hit you, if I went the wrong way. I don't know, it could be some different things going on. I don't know. But often in games that boys play, they have a definite winner and a loser. However, the games that girls play often scenario based, such as playing school or playing house or pretending to be a doctor or a patient. When boys do play in pairs, they are often some type of technology. There's often some kind of technology separating each participant. And so when you consider how boys play video games, for example, they play it differently than the way girls may play video games. So all of the researchers note that early socialization processes affect how men and women enjoy communication later in life. So women frequently communicate to establish connection and intimacy, while men use communication to establish dominance, interdependence, as well as status and control over their environment. Since the early 1990s, there has been analyzations of the speech patterns of men and women at work. And through that process, researchers like Tanner found several differences. In the study, the language used revealed that women use qualifiers and hedges more frequently than men's. Words and phrases such as perhaps and maybe we should can make women appear unsure of themselves. Whereas women in Tanner's study sometimes use upward inflection when making statements. This made them appear to be asking a question or seeking confirmation for what they were saying. And so, to those listening, the overall impression they made was that they lacked confidence. In an effort to show support for others' views, Tanner's noted that women often nodded to show agreement or acceptance of someone else's idea. In contrast, she reported that men often talk to exhibit knowledge, to establish their status in the group, or to give advice to others. So men will frequently more play devil's advocate simply to display dominance when they not disagree with an idea or did not disagree with an idea. They typically held the floor longer than women did. So their style of communication, as you can see, how one would look at it and kind of step back and be more cautious when we're very careful. Women, for the most part, I think our communication style too, we're nurturers. And so we try to nurture everything. That's part of who we are. We nurture our relationships, we nurture children, we nurture our family. We are just nurturers. And as such, sometimes that can be a bit of a challenge for some people. So we have to be extremely careful with our nurturing process, that we make sure that these nonverbal cues that we're giving off, that they are the right positive cues that we need to exemplify instead of the not negative ones. So again, communication styles are different from men versus women. Remember that communications is really essential. It's the difference between male and female. It can it shows social scientists have identified differences between male and female communications. And the differences have been attributed to either the socialization again, or simply a reflection of power differentiators between the male and the female. And so those are things that we're, kind of having to be aware of and watch and see. So we have to be careful of those qualifiers. Um, Leadership style, that matters, and that plays a role into how men and women communicate. So women tend to be more democratic, communicating vision, values, and purpose, Whereas also, not whereas, but also they have a transformational style, whereas men adopt a more authoritative or autocratic style. They focus on task completion and use contingent rewards. Men are more transactional, have a more transactional style, and little evidence to suggest that one sex way of communicating is different or more prevalent sometimes than the other. But we do see problems for women and interruptions that happen when women are talking and men are a part of it. So women tend to be unsure of themselves in comparison to men uh, by when they say using words like maybe, perhaps, could, might, or may, instead of using more dominant words in their communication style. So, gotta be careful there because if you use too much of the dominant personality style, then you're perceived as this witch sometimes. But anyway, also, and what we have to remember too, when we're talking in groups, the ratio of men to women and the subject may influence the participation of the members. In hierarchical situations, men tend to dominate discussions. In more collaborative environments, women participate equally with men. And in mixed settings, men and women tend to accommodate one another's style. And so, under nonverbal communications, we see that women use gestures in greater frequency than men. Women tend to be more restricted in their movements. Women tend to touch in to demonstrate status. Visual dominance ratio proportion of time looking power of high status individuals as well. And men are more apt to look at others while they're talking. They have that eye contact, whereas women are having to be extremely careful. So, in summary, this week we're talking about male versus female communication styles, and we're men versus women's leadership style, and how those two play a role in how we communicate. It's very important that we understand that the use of language, talking time and interruptions, that non-committal language when talking in groups, how we talk in groups, and the nonverbal communication cues that we use can impact the way we're seen by men when we're communicating. And so those are just a few things that we're talking about this week. And I look forward to hearing what you have to say about evaluating these various negotiation styles between men and women, and what your thought process is on them in the work environment. Also, how do you communicate in the work environment? Um, what has been a successful, more so, negotiation style of communicating for you when you are negotiating salaries or your review or things of that nature? What style do you seem to use, and is it with women or with men? Are you different? And are you different with various different people, cultures, and things of that nature when they're about in the room? So these are just, it's a lot, I know, and to take in and how we communicate, but these are facets that really help to determine who we are and how we progress within the organization. So that's it for today. And I look forward to talking more with you during our discussions. Take care.